Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Joe Taylor. This morning, another in the ongoing series of programs presented by the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning. The program, through the Northwest Institute of Research, oversees a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the Pennsylvania Department of Public Welfare and the Department of Education. The goal of the program is to improve the outcomes for young children as they prepare for school. John Posa is a community partner specialist for the program, and he's here with us throughout the series. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Good, and we have a guest this morning, right?
Yes, we do. Today, we want to welcome Donald Bernhardt, and Don is the recently retired Director of Community Affairs for PPL Utilities in Allentown. And in that position, he managed economic development, community development, and corporate citizenship. And Don, even though he's recently retired, he's still very active, and he's a member of Pennsylvania's Early Learning Investment Commission. So welcome, Don.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's a topic I always enjoy talking about, and I'm still really engaged in.
Thank you. Hey, one of the things that I know that you're very passionate about is in terms of our work with quality early learning here in Pennsylvania is strategies that businesses can be involved with to help our youngest people, making sure that they're prepared for the right path in school. And there's a lot that goes into that, isn't there?
Well, there is, but I certainly think that early childhood education with an emphasis on really high-quality early childhood education is a cornerstone of that. And in fact, I've taken on a new venture here in Allentown. There are great things happening in the Central Business District in Allentown, courtesy of an economic development program. There's $1 billion of construction going on in that district. But now we've taken on the task of carrying that prosperity over into the adjacent residential areas, and it's clear that one of the things we can do is improve the education system there, and the place to start is early childhood. And there are many things that businesses can do to help with that. The one particular extremely effective and cost-effective one is to use the Education Improvement Tax Credit Program to provide scholarships for low-income children to attend those high-quality centers. And businesses can do that and receive an 80% tax credit in return. So it's a particularly cost-effective way to do corporate philanthropy.
No question about that. As many of us know, the state also has the Child Care Works program, which is a subsidy program to help low-income families to be able to afford child care. But sometimes folks are sort of like at that income level where they're just over the income limit, and it's still a burden for them in being able to afford the child care, or they're on a waiting list because there's so many slots open. And that's where that earned income tax credit by the employer providing that or contributing to that can really help.
Yeah, that's another really nice benefit because it does provide some local discretion, some flexibility in what those income standards are. And something else I'd mention is that companies would be hard-pressed to, on their own, determine which programs are high quality and which aren't. But Pennsylvania is an absolute leader in that regard. With the Keystone Stars program, it's done for you. All I had to do as a corporate philanthropy officer was look it up on a website to see which ones were high-quality centers or had received their 3 or 4-star rating as opposed to no stars.
You're coming off of serving for PPL Utilities in Allentown Industries, and I know industries are very concerned about the STEM subjects because these are the subjects that then qualify these kids as they grow up to become potential workers in industry. In your opinion, at this point, are the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and math, being emphasized enough and adequately taught in Commonwealth schools? And if not, what's your suggestion? What needs to be done?
Well, I don't think so, and I think it's a common opinion in the business world that that's the case. And when companies look at baby boomer retirements that are coming in large numbers now. They just aren't convinced that the pipeline is adequately filled with students who have the interest and the aptitude in STEM. And there's a lot of things that need to be done about that. But again, I think the logical place to start is in early childhood education. And because of that, one of the last things I did at PPL was fund a large project, funded community services for children here in Allentown, to develop a specific curriculum to drive more STEM content into early childhood classrooms, and to develop all the materials, all the training, all the books, all the supporting material to go with that, so that curriculum can be used beyond classrooms here in Allentown.
How early can children learn the STEM subjects? When do you introduce it to them?
Well, that's a great question, and it's currently, there's a pilot program underway in a school called the Newton School here. It's a classroom of Head Start children, and it's 3 and 4 year olds. And it may not be intuitive that you can teach science and math to children that young, but I just observed that classroom, and it was really exciting. That, of course, STEM for children that age is things like counting and spatial relationships and building simple things, very much rooted in experiential learning. But there's a lot of great science behind that. It's not just a matter of cramming their head full of additional facts. It's STEM content, actually, more STEM content alters the way their brains develop, and of course puts them on a path that they're interested in science topics. And if you observe kids, I watch 3 and 4 year olds learning the concept of cantilevered buildings, which is something you wouldn't think children that age could grasp, but they can.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that's so important to know is that, and one of the critical skills for adults as they're entering the workforce is having those problem-solving skills, and it's really enlightening when you visit an early childhood classroom with preschoolers and you see, kids working on some type of a math or STEM-related project, and their inquisitiveness. They're very, very focused on solving that problem and coming up with an answer, and that's all part of it.
Well, they always do say that play is a child's work, actually. Yeah. Wanted to ask you about women in this equation, because for generations, I guess, is the misperception, I'm going to say the popular conception of misperception, obviously, is that girls are not interested in the STEM subjects or not skilled in them. What's being done to include and encourage girls to become more involved in these STEM subjects that are so vital?
Well, I think for one thing, there's a lot being done with teachers. That, of course, predominantly teachers in early childhood classrooms are women. And it's not uncommon to encounter the attitude of, geez, how can I teach science even to young children? I don't know science. But, that's where, training and carefully developed curriculums and support materials and even videos to support it comes in, that you can teach them the science necessary to engage young children. But I think, as kids start, I think it's gender neutral. I mean, if you observe these classrooms, the young women are just as engaged as the young men. And I think from there, it's a matter of what follow-through there is as they get into the K-12 system. But it's just inherently not true. As the father of a young woman who just graduated from Princeton as a biochemistry major and is pursuing a PhD in science, it absolutely is possible to keep women engaged. But, it's something, mentoring, I think, is another big part of that, and another topic that needs to be developed more than it has been, of getting young women matched up with women who've had successful careers in math and science.
Don, I know you mentioned about, I guess it's through Community Services for Children in Allentown, which receive funding from PPL. In developing that pre-K curriculum involving STEM and the materials and training. And I know you had an initial cohort of teachers and administrators that were trained. How is that going so far? And is there any effort to duplicate those types of things in terms of that curriculum statewide into other early child care environments?
Yeah, there absolutely is. I mean, as a funder, that was part of our objective, frankly, not just to do it as a one-off thing here in Allentown, but to do it repetitively, to have more of those training sessions, to train larger numbers of people, and I think it went extremely well. The people who took the training carried some excitement back to their programs, and I have no doubt there'll be additional training sessions like that. But some other things that are being looked at, working with the state and with Ochdel and Dr. Minzenberg, they're very interested in observing how this goes, and in some way, shape, or form, using Pennsylvania's great programs to drive some of this out across the state. And there's also conversations ongoing with PBS to do some videos that illustrate some of this training and make videos that could be made available to anybody throughout Pennsylvania and beyond.
Schools in the Commonwealth obviously are scraping these days to make ends meet, and getting them to upgrade or add new courses, it would be a financial burden that they probably can't afford. So can you talk a little bit about what it is you're doing, the role of private industry or other entities in helping to improve STEM subject education without costing schools and taxpayers?
Yeah, well, I mean, for one thing, certainly private funders, both companies and private foundations, are looking at funding some projects to develop some initiatives and share some of the cost burden. And for instance, there's Allentown was the recipient of a grant from a White House program and called Mentor Allentown that is going to use corporate employees to mentor children in particularly the middle school age to learn more science. So there are some things that can be done, and I'd also want to mention that there's a lot of consciousness of funding that but early childhood's a great example that if it's done right, it can not cost school districts money, but save school districts money. There's some great data about effective early childhood programs really reduce the number of children who need special education services when they hit the first grade level, and there's a way that school districts can save a great deal of money because those are very costly programs.
And of course, you're also building in the future a very effective workforce for local industries in those communities.
Yeah, exactly, and that's certainly one of the reasons why PPL was engaged in this. It's a somewhat unusual situation. PPL is a Fortune 300 company, but it's headquartered here in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And, some of the neighborhoods around us they're relatively poor neighborhoods, and PPL would like nothing better than to have a better trained workforce right here in our home territory to keep that pipeline full of STEM-oriented employees as potential future employees for the company.
One of the things you mentioned about the savings, we already know for a fact that we actually. When kids get the quality early start and they're ready for kindergarten, we reduce in our public schools the cost for special education by half by the time they're in third grade. So that is very, very significant. And one of the things we're also tracking, as you well know, Dawn, is that how well kids that come from quality early childhood education and are ready for school, how they do versus those children that do not when it comes to the time to take their first PSSA test for both math and reading. And there's some significant data to support the difference quality early childhood education makes.
Well, there is, and that's been one of the common but mistaken criticisms over the years of Head Start programs, that the effect fades over time. But there's more and more and better data that show that that's not really true, and that kids that start well maintain that advantage as they go through the school system. And, there's some interesting emerging. Just this week, the city of Chicago issued a press release about how they've used a new concept, social impact bonds or pay-for-performance program, where they're so sold on what we're talking about that it works and it reduces school district special education classes that they work with Goldman Sachs to inject many millions of dollars of extra funding into the early childhood system on the theory that the payback is going to come in the form of reduced special education costs. And I think that's something that can be replicated many other places.
How do you get the message out to families where for maybe generations it was used to be that a kid coming out of high school, if they didn't go to college or into the service, could get a good blue-collar job at the local plant, and basically it required muscles and maybe some hand-eye coordination. How do you get the message out to parents that, that isn't the way it is anymore, and these subjects, the STEM subjects, are important if they want their young person to have the quality of life and make the income that they've made?
Well, I think it requires an extensive partnership to do that. I mean, that's been something that people have plugged away at for years, and until recently without a lot of success. But it seems like the efforts to do that are really getting some traction, and I think it takes a lot. The Workforce Investment Board here is very engaged in making exactly that case and demonstrating to kids and their parents that there are a lot of jobs available out there, but they need a little bit of technical training. And the community college system in Pennsylvania is a major strength that, without spending a lot of money, you can get the technical education that you need to successfully get those jobs. And it requires a continuum starting with early childhood and going all the way through to keep children properly engaged, and can lead to things not just executive kind of jobs, but in fact, the lineman for a utility is a good example. A lot of them make $100,000 a year. It's an excellent job, but it requires, math skills, technical skills, but the training's very readily available and the jobs are very readily available.
Here in our part of the state, this was brought home to us very graphically maybe about 5 years ago, I think, when the Marcellus boom began, and companies had a problem hiring local workers with math skills that were needed for those jobs. And what they did is, for a number of years, they imported workers from places like Texas, Wyoming, other western gas states. And I think finally now the technical education here is catching up with that. But doesn't this demonstrate how young people having or not having those basic skills can not only affect their income, but also the economy of a local area? And thankfully around here, we've caught up with that.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I'm sure I know welders have been classically in short supply trade, and they're good jobs. And like I said, I think it's finally starting to sink in with people that that's the case. And there's a wide array of those kind of jobs. I think a lot of people have leftover negative perceptions of, what old factories were like, that they were, unpleasant, difficult work environments. And that's in many, many cases just not the case anymore, as most manufacturing is done with computer-controlled equipment that takes math skills and takes computer and programming skills in many cases.
Now, obviously, Don, you're still involved with the Early Learning Investment Commission in Pennsylvania. Can you address some of the things that the commission is actively involved in, so to give our listeners a little bit more of an appreciation for their role when it comes to early learning?
Well, they're basically in the business of proselytizing, of sharing the message that it's not just a charitable thing to support early childhood education, but there's a return on investment, and there are a lot of statistics around that. But a 10-to-1 ratio or return on early childhood investment. And we're trying to spread that message to others in the business community, in some cases to people within the education system, and trying to fund some local projects. In some cases, like here in Allentown, some of the need is just more physical space for classrooms in the right places, and that's the kind of thing the business community tends to be pretty good at helping to address. So all of those things, and sometimes just providing some business expertise on how to tackle some particular problems that the education system may have locally, and this concept of social impact bonds is one that I think is really taking root in the business community. That it's you invest more in early childhood, but again, it's not philanthropic. It's the dollars would come literally from investors, and there's a return on that investment in the form of dollars saved down the road in future education costs.
Well, thank you. And I just wanted to mention that if anyone has any questions or comments about the program and would like to send them to us, we have an email line at questions@nwirkey.org. That's questions@nwirkey.org.
Okay, I have one final question. As a parent, and my daughters are grown and beyond college and grad school and everything, but for parents, a lot of people there was the idea that your kid had to go to college and, for lack of anything else, take liberal arts. How would you advise parents now in terms of the best chance for their son or daughter to make a good living in today's economy? And I know I'm leading you with that question a little bit.
Yeah, no, I would advise them to look carefully at the professional and technical, some circles called gold collar jobs that have a technical bent to them that in many cases pay well, and there's a lot of paths to get there. And I'd emphasize again the strength of the community college system here in Pennsylvania, that it's possible to obtain a lot of this training without spending a ton of money. And I think parents need to be engaged in helping their children think that through sooner rather than later. I know a lot of times high school guidance counselors are overwhelmed. They're trying to help an awful lot of people at one time. So I think parents just need to be engaged in looking at what's out there in terms of job opportunities and training and school opportunities.
Well, thanks, Don. Our time is just about up, and it was great having the opportunity to talk with you about something that we're all so passionate about. And I want to wish you luck in your retirement, and by all means keep active with this mission that we all have in making sure kids are ready for school and in life.
Well, I intend to, and I appreciated the opportunity to chat about it a little bit.
And that's our program for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks at the same time. In the meantime, you can go online to learn more at papromiseforchildren.com. And as John said, if you have any questions, please email them to questions@nwirkey.org. For John Posa and the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning, I'm Joe Taylor. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.
You still there, Don?
I am.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much.